action stories in the Bible. This is no chick flick. This is no little romantic love story here. This one's for the guys, okay? This one is for the guys. Now, ladies, I want you to come along with us, but really, this story about Samson is for the guys. We're going to look at a guy who had supernatural strength, okay? And in him was supernatural potential, spiritual potential for life. In him was God's plans to use him in a huge way. And as we look at this guy who had supernatural strength, we're also going to see, I believe that God's going to use this in many of the lives here in this room to do something supernatural. Because you're going to identify with Samson. Guys in the room, you're going to identify with Samson. I don't know what the ladies are going to think about Samson. I don't know but the guys, you will identify with parts of Samson. Because, gentlemen, within you, there's great potential. There's huge spiritual potential. There's huge potential in you to make a difference in your world. And if you'll make a 4-week commitment, the story of Samson is going to last us 4 weeks. Guys, if you'll make a 4-week commitment to tune in to this story, to be here in God's presence and hear his word, I believe that God's going to use this story to raise up some spiritual leaders in the men in our congregation. I'm positive of it. Men who God will use to change the world, who God will use in a mighty way in this church, and men who God will use in their families and in their lives. And ladies, I want you to come along with us too. I'm not saying go away for 4 weeks. Please hear me, okay? I want you here too. And I'm sure that God will transform you too, but you got to hear this. This one's for the guys. The Samson is a story for the guys. So we're going to get started. You need to grab a Bible and open to Judges chapter 13. Judges 13 and 14 is where we're going to be today. If you didn't bring a Bible, grab a Bible. They're there in the seats in front of you or on the table. Judges is in the Old Testament. It's like the 7th book of the Bible. Or if you have your phone with you, you can go to YouVersion, youversion.com. Type in JUDG 13. It'll take you to where we are today. I don't know if you've caught this or not, but YouVersion's got the whole Bible right there in your phone. You can have it at any time. And if you learn the shortcuts, because I don't know how to spell anything, if you kind of can learn how the kind of 3 first letters in any book of the Bible, you can find it in YouVersion. But Judges is in the Old Testament, and it holds the story of Samson. Now, Samson's story is in Judges 13 through 16, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And my encouragement to you, my homework for every one of you is this week, would you read the whole story of Samson so you come prepared for next week, okay? You come to church and he gives you homework. What is that all about? But if you'll read it, and so that you're ready for next week, that would be perfect. Now, you need to know the book of Judges is not about judges like in black judicial robes and a gavel in a courtroom. That's not it at all, okay? The book of Judges is about the men and the women that God rose up to be leaders for his people. The book of Judges was written about a time in the life of Israel, in the life of God's people, when God said he was their king and they didn't need another king. But the problem was the people, God's people, continued to go their own way. They kept doing what they wanted instead of what God wanted. And so from time to time, God would raise up a judge, a leader. When the people turned their hearts back to God, he would say, let me give you a leader who will lead you out of this problem. Because as they gave their hearts away, instead of focusing on God, other nations would come in and own them. Other nations would come in and control them. And when the people turned their hearts back to God, God would say, I'll lead you out of this problem that you've created. And so he would give them a leader. He would give them a judge. See, during the time of the judges, everybody kept doing what was right in their own eyes, what they thought was good. And that inevitably led to them wandering away from God. In Judges 17, verse 6, is kind of the summation for the book of Judges. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. The people said, I'll do whatever I want. If it feels good to me, I'm going to do it. I like this, and so I'm going to do this. And they would wander away from God. And God would say, you know what? If you don't want to follow me, if you don't need me, that's fine. Do your own thing. And they did. And every time they did their own thing, enemies from other nations would come in and control them again, take them over again. And when the people turned towards God and worshiped him, he would give them a judge, a leader to deliver them. And today we're going to begin the story of Samson, who was one of these judges, one of these leaders that God used in a mighty way to deliver the people, to save the people after they'd wander away. So by now, hopefully you found it, Judges chapter 13, starting in verse 1. Can we get all of the lights up fully bright in here? I don't think we're quite all the way, but there we go, a little bit more. There we go. All right. Very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, Judges 13, verse 1. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Did you catch that again? Sounds like our lives, huh? I'm going to live for you, God. I'm going to do what you want. It's going to be good. And then we do our own thing again. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. A certain man of Zorah named Manoah from the clan of the Danites had a wife who was childless, unable to give birth. Verse 3. The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son. Now see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean." Verse 5. You will become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is to be a Nazirite. And circle that, Nazirite. If you're in your notes, if you're in your own Bible, underline it, circle it, Nazirite. The boy is to be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from the womb. He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Now, do you know what a Nazirite is? Have you ever heard of a Nazirite vow? The Nazirites were, if you made a Nazirite vow, that was a promise made by an average person, not by a priest, not by a prophet, but by an average person like you or me. A promise that we would make to God to say, God, I believe you could use me in a special way. God, I want to be used by you in a special way. I am yours. I'm devoting myself to you, which is actually what we sang earlier. Did you catch that? In that last song about how God is holy and we will live for him only. That's the Nazirite vow. I will live for you only, God. And so someone would make the Nazirite vow and they would say, God, I want you to use me. I'm going to live for you wholly. And specifically the vow would include 3 particular things. And for this series, for the story on Samson's life, you need to know what these 3 things are. Okay? The first one is no drinking. Okay, and that's what the angel said to his mom. And so if you take the Nazirite vow, you say no drinking, no Coronas with your Mexican food, right? No margaritas, no glass of wine with dinner, no drinking at all, nothing fermented. In fact, most Nazirites would go so far as to never even touch anything that grew on a vine, or to wander into a vineyard. Okay, so no drinking. Number 2, don't touch anything that's dead. Their dead body, don't touch it. You ever been to a funeral? I've done a lot of funerals. And when there's an open casket, most people act like they're Nazirites. They walk up and they look in and they're like, I ain't going to touch him. I loved her, but I'm not going to touch her, right? The Nazirite would say, I would never touch anybody that's dead. Why not? Because the Jews had strict laws about not touching anything that's dead, because it would make you unclean spiritually, but also it was to keep you healthy. Dead bodies transmit disease very rapidly. And so out of that, the Nazirites would say, I'm never going to touch anything that's dead. Okay, so no drinking, no touching anything that's dead, and really buried inside of that is don't make yourself unclean, right? And number 3, don't get your hair cut. No shaving, no hair cutting, keep it long, keep it flowing long. Now I don't know exactly what kind of hairstyle Samson had, okay? I don't know how you picture him in your mind, what he looked like, but I can guarantee you, I can prompt. Any of you in the 80s, did anybody here have long hair and like rock a mullet? Anybody here want to admit that? Okay, a couple of you, yeah, yes, all right. Some of you are like, what's a mullet? You don't know what a mullet is? Oh, where were you in the 80s? Okay, so in the 80s, this hairstyle was, the mullet was party in the back, it was all long, right? And then the front was cut short, and then you had it shaved right here on the fronts, right? So I can tell you this, I'm positive Samson did not have a mullet, okay? I'm positive. I mean, that's an ungodly haircut right there, a mullet. No. Now, if you had a mullet, you can be forgiven, you can be made clean, God will forgive you, right? You just got to repent. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what kind of haircut. Actually, as we read through, you'll find that Samson wore his hair in braids. You'll pick that up if you read carefully. And a lot of people actually thought that he had dreads. Can you imagine? So big, strong guy. Because if you know one thing about Samson, is that if you know anything about his story, you know that he was superhuman strength and he had long hair. And some of you are like, you know what, Matthew, I get that Nazirite vow thing. I get the no drinking. I understand that. Because when we drink, we do stupid stuff. I get that. And I understand the no touching dead people. I get that too. That makes sense. But what's with the no cutting your hair? What's with that? What's that all about? Well, that's kind of like next Sunday when we're going to celebrate baptisms. We've got 3 people who have said, I have accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Happened on the inside. And I want to make sure everybody on the outside knows what's happening to me. Same way, the long hair was an outward sign to everybody to say, I'm living for God, and he's going to use me, right? It's kind of like a wedding ring. Now I wear a wedding ring because I'm married to my wife, Heather. And so for this inward vow that I've made, that she comes first in my life, above any of you, right? God first, my wife second, that's it, right? So this vow that I've made I wear a ring on the outside to show people the promise that I've made to my wife. The same way with the long hair. It was to show on the outside, an outward way, the promise that's been made on the inside. So that's what the long hair is about. That's why his hair was supposed to be long and no razor to cut it and leave it long, right? And so if you know anything about him, you know that he had long hair and superhuman strength. His strength was beyond anything that we could imagine, right? I mean, some of you guys in this room, some of you work out, you're strong, you think you have superhuman strength, right? I mean, last night for Halloween, you spray painted your body green and you were like the Incredible Hulk. I know, right? Yeah. Anybody here dressed up besides me? Anybody else? Just me. All right. Nobody else. Nobody else. Okay, great. Did you dress up? What did you dress up like? Like what? Thing 1? Who was thing 2? All right, very good. Very good. You know what I was? A hot dog. Yeah. Can't believe none of you dressed up last night. One other person? You dressed up? What'd you dress up like? Very good. Okay. You guys can come over to my house and hang out with me. The rest of you, I don't know about you guys. Come on now. Okay, so Samson, super long hair, super strength. But we're going to find out in the story that even though he was super strong, he wasn't invincible. He had some kryptonite. We could summarize the life of Samson with this one statement. Samson was physically strong, but he had a dangerously weak will. Samson was physically strong. And lots of times we think, man, if I was just a little bit physically stronger, that would be good. I'd be physically healthier. We idolize people who are physically strong and physically healthy. But Samson was physically strong. He was the image of physical strength and health. But he had a weak will, a dangerously weak will. And what you're going to see is that, guys, he's just like so many of us. Many of you guys in here, you are strong. You're physically strong. And Samson, he was incredibly strong. And he had tremendous spiritual potential. And God had big plans for him. But his weak will wrecked a lot of things. Men in this room, you are physically strong, yes. And God has given you huge spiritual potential. And he's got good, big, important plans for your life, things that he wants to do through you. But if we have a weak will, it could wreck our lives. Now, guys, some of you even have great hair like Samson, right? Good hair isn't good enough. We're going to look at this issue of having a weak will and what this does. Because when we have a weak will, we could be strong on the outside. We could be physically strong. We could be physically fit. But when we have a weak will, it'll destroy our lives. God's put huge potential in us. But if our will is weak, it could destroy us and the people that we love, our families that we've been called to lead. We're going to watch as Samson loses his temper. We're going to watch as Samson dishonors his family. We're going to watch as Samson betrays his God. We're going to watch as Samson gives into lust. So, gentlemen, you need to hear this. Samson is just like us, just like you, just like me. So much potential for greatness. But for both of us, so strong, so much potential, yet we can be so weak. We can fall apart. We can self-destruct. So why do so many potentially great men fall apart? Today we're going to look at three attitudes in Samson's life that made him weak. And then we're going to look at the three attitudes we need in our life to make us strong. Here's the first one. Attitudes that make strong men weak. Number one, the first one is lust. I want it. When we see something we want, guys, we say, I want it, I'm going to get it, I'll do whatever it takes to have it. We set logic aside and we set our goal and we fix our eyes on it and we go for it. We say, I'm going to get it. And maybe what you want is a woman. Maybe what you want is a quick fix. Maybe what you want is money or a car or some sort of toy. Maybe what you want is a sexual thrill. Maybe what you want is some sort of release or some sort of rest. And we say, I'm going to get it, whatever the cost is. We set logic aside and we pursue it with reckless abandon. And we're going to see as Samson does this, as he goes out, sets his eyes on something and goes after it, regardless of the cost. Now, we're going to pick up in Judges chapter 14, right? We heard about how he was going to be born and how he was going to be raised up by God to free the people, to do something amazing. He's grown up now. He's probably a young teenager. He's probably in his late teens or early 20s at this point in Judges chapter 14. And in verse 1, it says, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned home, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman, and she was hot. Well, I added that part, but you'll see. He's got this thing for women. You watch. I've seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. I want her. I want it. I need it. I don't care what it's going to take. You get it for me. Verse 3. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She's the right one for me. So Samson leaves his town, his hometown, and he goes to the enemy village, right? He goes to the other people. There really are the Philistines that have come in and they've taken over God's people, enslaved them once more, right? And they're telling them how to live, and they're telling them what to do and how to think, and they're telling them who's going to be their king and how they're going to live. And so Samson goes over, and he goes into enemy territory to the town of Timnah, and there he sees this woman who catches his eye and catches his heart. He hasn't met her. He hasn't talked to her. So let's be honest about what this is. He sees her on the outside and says, I want her. We're talking about lust. Right? We're not talking about love. We're talking about lust. He hasn't even spoken with her. He just sees her and says, I have to have her. He goes home and tells his mom and dad, because during that time, all marriages were arranged. And I know you're wigged out by that and you think it's crazy, and it might be crazy, but that's the way they did it then. And so he goes home and he asks his mom and dad, Mom, Dad, you got to get this woman for me. And his dad says, come on now. God said we're not supposed to marry anybody outside the Jewish people. If this girl's heart isn't for God, you shouldn't be marrying her. And by the way, that's what still stands for Christians today. We should only marry people. If I say I love God, I should only be marrying someone else who loves God. And so he comes home, he says, I want this woman. Dad says, you can't marry her. She doesn't love God. Isn't there somebody else? And he says, no, I don't care what the rules say. I don't care what you say. I don't care what this is going to cost you. I don't care what this is going to cost our family. This is what I want. Get her for me. You can kind of picture him like being that 4-year-old kid in the shopping cart in the grocery stores. You pull up to the checkout cart and Clark, and the kid's grabbing for the candy bars. I want it, right? And men, that's what happens to us. We get our eyes set on something and we say, I want it. I don't care what it's going to cost. And he's having himself a little pity party. I don't care what's wise. I don't care what's right. I don't care what my parents say. A man's got to have what a man wants. I've got my desires. I need this. I deserve it. I want it. And over and over again, lust makes strong men weak. Now, guys, before we move on to the next one, think through your life and then think about the things that you have had yourself a little tantrum over, that you've wanted and you've made dumb choices for. I mean, if we're going to be honest, we can all think of things that we have done this over. Number 1, lust makes strong men weak. Number 2, entitlement. I deserve it. I deserve it. I work hard. I deserve this thing. I work hard. I deserve this rest. I work hard. I've been slaving away. I deserve this. And I've even heard people say, you know what? I put up with her. I deserve this. We come up with ways to explain why we deserve something, when oftentimes we don't really deserve it. But we've convinced ourselves we do. And we explain it away, and we say, I deserve it. I'm entitled. Watch what Samson does next. Judges 14, verse 5. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and his mother. And as they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. Verse 6. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. Now, this guy is cooler than Chuck Norris, right? I mean, a lion comes out of nowhere. He's wrestling with his bare hands. He's ripping it apart. I remember going to the zoo with my little kids, and I remember Isaiah. Isaiah must have been like 3 years old, just a little guy, just standing there. He's up against the glass in the tiger's cage, right? And there's this big pane of glass, and the tiger's on the other side just staring at Isaiah. And I remember thinking, I am really uncomfortable with this. I know the glass there is like 6 inches thick. It's like 8 inches thick. I know we're going to be okay, but come on, Isaiah, we got to get away from here, right? No glass between Samson and this lion. Lion comes out, lion's going to eat him, and Samson just starts ripping it apart. And there's that weird line in there about a guy with a goat. What would happen was that they would take the young goats and they would kill them, they would bleed them out, and they would drain them, and then when they were going to when they were going to roast the goat, they would grab it by its back legs and pull it apart. Okay? Now this is disgusting, isn't it? It's we're talking about a little kid, a little tiny goat. He grabbed the lion, a couple 100 pounds, rips it apart. Superhuman strength. I mean, this is unreal what this guy is doing. This is who Samson is. This is what God does in his life. So he rips this lion apart, and if it was me, I'd be like going around telling everybody, I just ripped a lion apart. That was awesome. Look at all this blood on me, right? This is from the lion, right? It says, but he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. He didn't tell anybody. So evidently they're going back to Timnah. They're going back to see if they can arrange this wedding, right? He's going with his parents. Evidently he and his parents get separated. His parents go on ahead or something, or he's wandering by these vineyards. Did you catch that? The guy who's not supposed to be anywhere near fermented drink, anywhere near anything alcohol, he's wandering by the vineyards. Okay. And a lion comes out. He wrestles the lion. He rips it apart. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Verse 7. Then he went down and he talked with the woman, and he liked her. So mom and dad were able to arrange for the wedding, and they're going to get married, right? And he finally gets to talk with her for the first time, and he decides, I still like her. That's good. Verse 8. Sometime later, so some time has gone by. Sometime later, when he went back to marry her, so they set up the wedding, and it could have been as long as a year between when they set up the marriage and when the wedding was going to be. Sometime later, we don't know how long, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass. He's walking back to Timnah. He says, I remember I killed that lion somewhere around here, somewhere near this vineyard right here. So he goes off the beaten path, and he starts going to look for this lion. And guys, isn't it when we go off the beaten path, when we get ourselves in trouble? Sometime later, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass. And in it, he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. So it's been sitting there long enough that a swarm of bees have come and made their nest inside of the dead lion's carcass, right? And there's honey in there. Verse 9. He scooped up the honey with his hands, and he ate it as he went along. And everybody said, gross. Yeah. He scooped out the honey with his hands and ate it as he went along. And when he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they ate it too. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. So he rips up this lion. Some time goes by. He goes back. He finds an entire hive has made its nest inside of this lion's carcass. He reaches in there. He pulls out the honey. He's eating it. He's feeding it to his parents, right? I got some problems with this. I don't know about you, but there's some problems with it. Number one, eating honey out of a dead lion, that is disgusting. That is wrong. I mean, can you get salmonella from eating rotting lion? I don't know. And then he feeds it to his parents and doesn't tell them where it came from. Here you go, guys. Have some, right? Gross. And second, wasn't he supposed to be the guy, the Nazirite vow, who wasn't supposed to touch a dead carcass? And he is. And not only is he doing it to himself, but his bad decision is affecting now his parents too. Gross. See, if someone who had taken the Nazirite vow and was taking it seriously, at the point where they touched a dead carcass, they were supposed to go to the temple to get washed up, to get clean, to be made clean again. But he doesn't have time for that. He's on his way to get married, and he killed this lion. He deserved to be able to eat this honey. He killed this lion. He deserves this treat, right? He doesn't care that it's wrong. He says, I earned this. I deserve this. God's the one who gave him the power to defend himself from the lion. God gave him the power to do this. God's the one who blessed him. And now he's betraying that same God. Touching the carcass. For a handful of honey, he's betraying his God. And you're thinking, well, what kind of stupid fool would betray their God for a little bit of honey? All of us. We've all done something like this sometime in our life. Granted, you may not have reached inside of a dead animal to eat honey out. If you have, I'd like to talk with you afterwards. That'd be an interesting story, and we need to talk, right? But the truth is we say, I love you, God. God, I'm sold out for you. God, I'll live for you. The very God who blesses us and takes care of us. Like we were singing earlier, he's our breath in our lungs. He's the one who gives us life. Like Karen was praying, God is the one who gives us our kids that bring us joy. He's the one who gives us our jobs that provide for our needs. He's the one who allows us to see today. We were never promised tomorrow, right? All these are gifts from God. And the very God who blesses us is the very one we turn around and we betray every single day. Men do this. We betray the God who blesses us. We do stupid things. We do sinful things. Sinful things that only hurt us, our relationship with God, and they hurt the people around us too. See, we're no different than Samson. We say, I deserve this, and then we take it. This attitude of entitlement makes strong men weak. Here's number 3. Pride. Pride. This is when we say, I can handle it. I can handle it. I know I shouldn't. I know it's wrong, but I can do this. I can handle it. It's okay. I can handle this. In Judges 14, verse 10, the marriage is set up. And he's going back, right? The marriage is all set up. Now, verse 10, now his father went down to see the woman. They're making the last minute arrangements for the wedding, right? And Samson made a feast there, as was customary for bridegrooms. Now, the Hebrew word there for feast is mishtah. Everybody say mishtah. Mishtah. Yeah, feast. Now, this isn't like I'm inviting you guys over in your Halloween costumes just to hang out with me, okay? Mishtah. This is like I'm inviting you all over and you all bring a lot of beer because we're all going to get wasted. Mishtah. See, he's having his bachelor party, and so he's inviting all of his buddies over, and they're gonna tap the keg, and they're just gonna get wasted. That's the plan. Mishtah, a feast or party as an occasion for heavy drinking, and Samson's saying, it's okay, I can hold my liquor. I'm good for it. I can handle this. Can he? Can he really handle this? While he's smashed, he goes and he's going to make a bet that he loses. And we'll talk about this next week. He gets smashed, he gets wasted, he is drunk, and he makes a bet that causes him, he loses the bet, and then that causes him to do a bunch of really stupid things. But that's next week. And the Bible is really clear. It's okay to have some alcohol. It's okay to drink. You know, if you're of legal age, fine, go for it, you know. But if you're running to the bottle because you had a bad day and you run to the alcohol instead of God, that's not okay. If you're hiding in a bottle because you don't want to deal with whatever's going on, that's not okay. If your plan is to get drunk, that is not okay. If you happen to get drunk, that's not okay either. The Bible's really clear. It's okay to have a little bit of alcohol, but it's never okay to get drunk. And now, to make matters worse, though, here's Samson. Remember the 3 vows that he made? One is to never drink anything at all, let alone get wasted to get drunk. Samson's a Nazirite. He's never supposed to drink anything that's been fermented. But he says, it's okay. I can handle it. I'm a big man. I'm a strong man. I'm a manly man, right? I can handle this. I got it. I got it covered. I can do this. And that's what happens to strong men over and over and over again. We tell ourselves, I can handle this. Other people might not be able to, but I can. Other times in my life, I might not have been able to deal with this, but I can now. We tell ourselves, I can handle it. Maybe for you, it's a drink. Maybe for you, it's the bottle. Maybe it's a pill. Maybe it's smoking something. You know, pot is legal. I get it. But it's still an escape. If we're running to that instead of running to God, this isn't okay. But we tell ourselves, I can handle it. I can handle it. And before long, it owns us. We drink too much. We smoke too much. We take too much. We say, I can handle it, but we can't. We say, you know what, I want that boat. I want that car. I want that house. I can handle the payments. And the next thing we know, we're drowning in debt. We said, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. But we can't. Or we say, you know what, I just want to peek. I'm an adult. It's okay, I can handle it. I can look at that kind of stuff. It'd be all right. I won't let it go too far. But guys, let's be honest, our lust will lead us down places real quickly into a spiral that we can't get ourselves out of. That's why some of us in this room are addicted to porn. We have sexual addictions. That's why some of us in this room, our marriages are falling apart. Relationships are falling apart. See, sexual purity is a really big deal to God because he knows what sexual infidelity does in our lives, the way it destroys us and our relationships and our families. Sexual purity is a really big deal in our relationship with God. But we say, it's okay, I can handle it. And then everything falls apart in our hands. It's these attitudes that make strong men weak. Lust, entitlement, and pride. These are the three things that most men wreck their lives on. These are the rocks that most men destroy their lives on. Lust, entitlement, and pride. And Samson is on an express trip to self-destruction right here. But here's the deal, guys. You don't have to go down this road. You don't have to follow Samson. You don't have to go this way that he's going. There is tremendous spiritual potential in each one of you men. God's got big plans for your life. He's got big plans for you. And you can be a godly man. You can be an amazing husband. You can be the leader for your family. But we need some new attitudes. So let me give you the 3 attitudes we need in our lives to replace these old ones. 3 attitudes that will make weak men strong. Here's number 1. New attitude number 1 needs to be, I want God. I want God. Everybody say it with me. I want God. Nah, you're not going to get it like that. Sorry, no. Let's try it again. I want God. Now that was pretty good, but I could hear the ladies more than the men. And as I said, this was for the guys. So guys, come on now. Here we go. On the count of 3, men only. 1, 2, 3. I want God. I'm not sure you do. Now, wanting God isn't just something that we say, right? And wanting God isn't just something that we, on Sunday morning, we say loudly, and that means it really works. But do you really want God? Is that really the thing that you want? Do you know how much you need God? Do you know that your strength only comes from God and that you need Him to be strong? Do you really want His daily power? Do you spend time with Him, praying, talking to Him, asking Him for the things that you need? Do we really want His Word living inside of us? So we spend time, are you spending time reading His Word to get it inside of you? Do you really want God, or do you just say that? Do you really want God? Do you want Him to order your steps? Do you want Him to point out the things in your life that are hurting you, that don't line up with His Word? Do you want Him to point out the sin in your life? Do you want Him, by the power of His Spirit, to convict you when you're doing wrong? Do you want God? Do you want Him to transform you from the inside out? Do you want Him to direct you? See, the problem is a lot of us men, we don't really want God like that. We believe the line that says, religion, Christianity is just a crutch for weak men. And you know what? I think that's a true line. I think that's a true statement. I think that if I'm strong in myself, I will make a mess of my life. And I think that if I will admit that I am weak, and I ask for God, and I lean on Him instead of doing it in my own strength, unquestionably I am weak and I want God and I need His strength. But see, most of us guys, we're too busy trying to be strong by ourselves. We don't really want God. We just want kind of a Christian facade. We want to just kind of pretend a little bit. Do you want God? Attitude number 1 that makes weak men strong. I want God. Ephesians 6:10 says, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Be strong in Him. We need Him and not ourselves, not our own strength, not physically strong, but we need Him. Number 2, I deserve death. I deserve death. Guys, what we deserve is death. Ladies are sitting back there like, yeah, you tell him, Pastor Matthew. My guy, he deserves death. No, this isn't just for the guys. This is for the ladies too. The Bible's really clear. Because of what we've done, because of the way we've lived life, because of the sin in our lives, we all deserve death. Romans 6:23 says, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. What we deserve, what we've earned because of our sin, when we've been selfish, when we've been lustful, when we've been prideful, when we've hurt other people, what we deserve is death. See, we don't deserve anything good. We've sinned against a holy God, and what we deserve is to be locked out of His presence, like we talked about over the last few weeks. We're not entitled to anything good. God doesn't owe us anything. I know we think we're impressive, and I know we think that God owes us something, but He doesn't owe us anything at all. But God sent His Son anyways, as a gift, because He loves us. And when we get that, when we humbly say to God, God, I know I deserve death, but what I want is you. When we actually want God, when we realize we deserve death and we want God, you know what the natural response is? God, I don't have to serve you, but I want to serve you. See, I can tell when a guy really wants God because they are serving him. Action. Now, guys are action-oriented, right? I mean, guys, we need something to do, give us a task, and we'll do it. Guys, this is our task. If we're saying, I want God, and we realize that we deserve death, then the action that's going to show up in our life is we're going to be serving him. We're going to be serving him, not because we have to, but because we want to. Here's number 3. I can't handle anything without God. The attitude we need to have is I can't handle anything without God. Let's be honest, guys. We may look strong on the outside, and people may refer to you as the stronger sex, but let's be really honest. Many of us have made really horrible mistakes in life. And we are capable of making all sorts of more horrible mistakes than we have. And you know what? I, as a pastor, I'm not immune to this. We're all capable of making some really stupid mistakes. Destroy our lives and destroy the lives of the people that we love. We're all weak. We're all vulnerable. Without the presence of God in our lives, we will make bad mistakes, horrible mistakes. We will wreck our lives on lust and entitlement and pride. We can only stand strong when we've been on our knees. Or we can only stand strong when we've admitted to God how weak we really are, and we plead for his strength. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9 is one of those verses that a lot of us probably need to memorize. God is saying to us, he's saying to you this morning, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in your weakness. He's saying, I will show myself strong in your life if you will admit that you're weak. But most of us guys, we won't admit to God or to anybody else that we're weak. We're going to be strong, we can handle this, we can do this. And God says, let me show you how powerful I really am if you will just admit for once how weak you really are. He says, I will come and I will show you how strong I really am. Now please understand, this verse, when it says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in your weakness, God is not saying, do something stupid so everybody can see how good I am, okay? He's not saying that at all. What he's saying is, will you admit who you really are? Will you admit that you're weak? And if you will do that, I will fight for you. I will be on your side. And the world will see how strong I really am. There's great potential in you. I've got big plans for you. But you have to start by admitting that you're weak. When we admit that we're weak, then we get to see how strong God really is. We can live up to the potential that he's placed in us. And we'll see God do something supernatural in us. So our new attitude needs to be that I want God. I deserve death. And I can't handle anything without God. You got that, guys? We'll talk about this more next week as we continue on Samson's life. Let me pray for us. God, this morning we thank you for Samson, not for the things that he did right, but the warning that he gives us today. God, I want to pray specifically for the men in this room. Many of us who think that we're strong and we've got life covered and we're doing things our way. But God, I pray that for this morning specifically, right now in this time, that we would be able to admit to you how weak we really are. That we could admit the bad decisions, the mistakes that we've made in the past. And we could admit to you that we're just one moment away from making another really stupid mistake, just like Samson. God, this morning what we want to do is we want to commit to you. We want to commit to you that you could use us. We want to commit to you that we will be yours. We want to commit to you that, much like that Nazirite vow, commit to you, God, we want you to do something through us. We're here for you, to be used by you. Gentlemen, my encouragement to you this morning is that you would pray and talk to God. That specifically this morning you would ask him to use you in a supernatural way. Not by feats of strength like Samson. But right now, would you commit yourself to God? That you will live for him and not for yourself like Samson? Would you commit to him this morning that you are weak and what you need is him? ladies, if you brought a guy with you this morning, if you're here with your husband, would you be praying for him right now? That he would not just sit and listen, but instead that he would actively seek after God. God, what I pray is that over the next 4 weeks, you would not only grab our attention, but you would grab our hearts. Specifically, would you grab the hearts of the men? And would you do something supernatural in them and through them? And would you use us, would you use these men to transform this corner of the world, to transform this church, and to transform the families represented here today? God, we lift up these men to you in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.